This morning, Ted Cruz, like we have not heard him in years. How he drew such a strong Democratic challenger, why conservatives are spending so much, and where he disagrees with President Trump. LULAC's new national president is a familiar face to this program. It's Domingo Garcia with a big agenda, but how will he accomplish it? And the candidate swap. Less than 100 days before the election, Dallas County Republicans make a replacement in their race for county judge, elevating a Republican who was kicked off the ballot in another race.
Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley starts now.
This morning, we begin with the most competitive statewide race in years. 2 weeks ago, Beto O'Rourke was with us on this program. This morning, it's Ted Cruz's turn, talking politics, not policy, when he was in town last weekend. Senator, thank you for your time.
Absolutely.
After one term in office, why do you think you drew such a strong Democratic challenger?
Well, this is a divided time. Our country right now is polarized. There are a lot of folks on the far left who are energized, who are angry, who hate the president. And, you know, I think a lot of us find it unfortunate to see so much anger, so much division. But I think what we're seeing in Texas is a manifestation of what we're seeing across the country, which is the left reacting with a lot of anger right now.
Beto O'Rourke is known for his charisma, known for connecting with voters. I'm just curious, you agreed to 5 debates with him. How will you prepare for debates against someone like that?
I think elections should be about substance. Elections should be about policy and issues. And so, you know, as you noted, I proposed to Congressman O'Rourke that we do 5 debates, that we do them across the state, all over the state of Texas, that we do them based on different policy issues, whether taxes and regulations and the economy, or national security and foreign policy, or immigration and border security, or the Supreme Court, or health care and Obamacare, issues that matter to the Texas voters. Too many people approach politics and make it a nasty battle of personal attacks. I don't think that's the way it should be. That's never been the way I've approached politics.
You're a noted debater, though. How do you prepare for a debate against somebody who's known for his charisma, who's popular for that?
Well, look, I'll note on the charisma folks that in many ways it's the media that is in love. So the most frequent adjective that gets used for him is Kennedy-esque. That's fine, usually with the wind blowing in his hair, but that's okay. You focus on any debate the same way, which is you focus on the substance of what you're talking about. And there are 2 different visions. There are 2 different visions for the road Texas wants to be on. Congressman O'Rourke is running a hard left campaign. That's a vision that's very popular with the media. It's why you get so many glowing profiles with it. It's not a vision that reflects the values of Texans. I think what Texans want is low taxes, low regulations, lots of jobs, higher wages. And we want our constitutional liberties protected. We want our fundamental rights protected. And so I look forward to these debates as a chance to lay out what we believe, what our records are, what we have stood and fought for in the past, and what we'll stand and fight for going forward.
President Trump giving handouts to farmers to help them survive in a trade war that he started. You are famously against handouts and bailouts. I'm curious whether you support or oppose that.
I don't. I think it's a mistake. I don't think we ought to be doing subsidies and bailouts. And I think what farmers want is trade, not aid. I'll tell you, as I listen to farmers and ranchers across the state, as I listen to the business community in Texas, the most frequent concern I hear is trade. Now, farmers, ranchers, small business owners are thrilled with the tax cut. They're thrilled that the administration is pulling back job-killing regulations. So the economy's booming. But the biggest warning clouds on the horizon are trade and the potential of a trade war and tariffs going up. And I've made the case directly to the president repeatedly that we ought to be lowering tariffs. We ought to take something like NAFTA renegotiation. We ought to be using that as an opportunity to lower the barriers to getting into the Mexican markets, the Canadian markets. We ought to open up the Mexican energy markets. Let Texas oil and gas companies come in and develop oil and gas in Mexico. That'd be good for Mexico, good for Texas.
But the president's doing the opposite of that.
Within the administration, there are conflicting voices. There's a real division of opinion on many, many issues. The president and I agree, and he has been listening to my counsel when it comes to cutting taxes, when it comes to lifting regulations, when it comes to national security, things like moving our embassy in Israel to Jerusalem, things like pulling out of the disastrous Obama-Iran nuclear deal. On trade, he has not listened to my advice. I hope that he does, but at least so far he has not.
You are noted for railing on President Obama, especially during 2016 when you ran for president, for adding trillions to the debt. But last year when President Trump took office, the national debt was $19.9 trillion. Today it's more than $21.2 trillion. Republicans have all three chambers, if you will. Why are conservatives spending so much money?
Listen, both parties are responsible for this. You're right, Republicans and Democrats. Go back to the year 2000. In 2000, the national debt was $5 trillion. After 8 years of George W. Bush's administration, $5 trillion had doubled to $10 trillion. Then you have Barack Obama in 2008. 8 more years of Obama, the national debt doubles once again from $10 trillion to $20 trillion. So 2 presidents, total of 16 years, has quadrupled our national debt. It's wrong, it's immoral, we need to stop it. And I've said that with Republican presidents and Democratic presidents. Now, what do we do to stop it? One of the unfortunate things we saw is we saw a $1.3 trillion omnibus bill pass Congress. I voted against that. That was a mistake. The Democrats insisted on blowing up non-defense spending and drove a lot of that spending. I think that was unfortunate. I will say, though, the most powerful tool to turn around the debt is economic growth. It is jobs and economic growth. It's why the tax cut that was passed in December is so important. We just saw this week that GDP growth in the United States for the last quarter was 4.1%. Under Obama, it was 1% and 2%. We're now up over 4%. That is a big, big deal. Because if you want to pay down the debt, the only force strong enough to do that is economic growth, producing more jobs, producing more tax revenue, and we're seeing that. Yes, we need to rein in spending. I'm going to keep fighting for that, but growth is the key to turning around the debt.
And I'm curious about that as well, too, though. Are you concerned that the trade war might impact that?
Unquestionably. It's one of the reasons I've urged the president not to go down that road.
A lot of parents wonder how they will send their children to school, pay for that, or even manage the cost of loans.
Right.
What's the answer?
Well, look, as you noted, I understand those concerns firsthand. When I was in high school, my parents went bankrupt. They owned a small business in the oil and gas business, and it was the mid-'80s, and the oil prices collapsed, and they went out of business. So when I went to college, I took student loans and was on my own. I worked 2 jobs in college because my parents didn't have any money to help pay for school.
Should Congress intervene, though, and forgive loans or make them more manageable or address the rising cost of college?
The biggest thing we can do, there are a lot of factors that drive up the cost of college that we need to be pressing down, and most of that needs to be at the state level. Most of those decisions on higher education are at the state level. The most important thing for young people is that when they come out of school, they have jobs. It's why I'm a little bit of a Johnny One-Note. My focus is jobs and growth, jobs and growth, jobs and growth. It's my number one priority. Why? Because it's the number one priority of Texans. If you're coming out of school, it's one thing to have $100,000 in debt like I did and not have any job opportunities, be sleeping in your parents' garage. That's frustrating and demoralizing. It's another thing to come out of school with multiple job offers, with opportunity, with a career, with the ability to build skills. That's how you pay off your loans. And listen, it wasn't that many years ago that I paid off my student loans, so I understand if you're in an environment like Texas where the economy is doing well, that's a lot better for young people. That's why young people come from all over the country to be in Texas, because they want jobs.
Senator, a few seconds left here, too. What have you learned in your 6 years in the Senate? You tangled with your colleagues early on. You ran for president. You reconnected with Texas. What have you learned in that time?
Well, you know what? I would say there were different periods and different circumstances. The first several years I was there, you had Barack Obama as president. He was someone who was pursuing a far-left agenda, an agenda that I thought was very harmful to the people of Texas. My role was to be the leader of the loyal opposition, to do what I could to stop policies that were hurting Texans and hurting jobs. That whole world changed in January of 2017 because now we have a Republican president Republican majorities in both houses. And so what has consumed my every waking moment for the last year and a half since we've had those majorities is bringing Republicans together, getting 50 Republicans to yes in the Senate and delivering on our results on our promises. And between cutting taxes, an historic tax cut, pulling back job-killing regulations, repealing the Obamacare individual mandate, or confirming strong constitutionalist judges, I think we are delivering on the promises, and my focus is and will remain on results and delivering on our promises.
Senator Cruz, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jason.